Hi guys! Welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new legal advice content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first one is titled, Neighbor Building Huge Garage Too Close to Property Line. Anne Arundel County MD. So recently my neighbor has decided to build a garage in his backyard. I didn't have an issue with it, until he decided to make it a huge 2-story garage. It now blocks a huge amount of sunlight from our backyard, and in general is a huge eyesore. After doing some research, our county requires a 7-foot setback from the side and rear of the property lines. My neighbor is definitely maybe 2 feet from our property line, and about 4 feet from the adjacent neighbor, corner lot neighbor, property line. I also looked online for a permit for his garage based on the address, and the garage definitely does not have a permit. I plan on contacting our local zoning/planning department and filing an anonymous complaint. I'm mostly concerned about our resale. It's a massive eyesore. I'm curious on whether they'll just be slapped with a fine for building without a permit, or will I have the ability to request them to either move the garage, very unlikely, or demolish it. I'm pretty upset they couldn't have just left it as a 1-story. I wouldn't have cared at all. Update. Hey everyone, I know there's been lots of people requesting an update on this massive garage in my backyard, and I finally have one, but unfortunately need additional advice. Today I received a letting in the mail about the administrative hearing for a variance scheduled. I have made plans to attend this hearing. I am concerned because according to the application, there was a previous 1-story garage in the general vicinity. I don't believe this will be a big factor, but I want to be prepared to present our case to block this variance. Mainly for factors of safety, privacy, and property value losses. The windows of this garage look directly into my 2nd-story windows, and it towers over my entire backyard. This has resulted in my grass dying in areas, and weeds taking their place. It is close to the power lines, so if it were to ever catch on fire, I'm concerned it would spread to my house very easily. Not to mention the fact that a massive garage towering over my backyard will cause a large loss of value to any potential buyers in the future. At this point, should I consult with a real estate attorney? I would imagine a case like this, if there were any sort of opposing party, would quickly be shut down. But there is also a chance the variance is allowed, and I just look like an asshole neighbor for opposing it. Update 2. I've been asked a lot about the results of the garage my neighbors were building. We had a hearing 2 weeks ago and they granted the variance for them to keep it where it is with the exception that the 2nd story is removed. I am happy with this outcome, as the 2nd story has really been the issue. I don't mind them having a garage, and I think this is a fair compromise. Update 3. I still get messages asking for an update from this situation, so I figured I'd give everyone an update. After sitting and deteriorating for the better part of 6 months, they finally hired some reputable contractors who tore most of the garage down, aside from the interior framing of the 1st floor. They're getting close to completing the garage as a 1-story, and it looks so much better. Much less of an eyesore. My backyard is even starting to grow grass again, just in time for it to die from the weather. At this point I'm just hoping they don't start trying to run their business. They have a fleet vehicle repair service, out of it. I don't mind it, but I'd heavily prefer not to have a mechanic shop in my backyard. But time will tell. On another note, my other next-door neighbor purchased an enclosed trailer, and has just started sitting in it literally all day talking to himself. He even has a window AC unit sitting on a chair in there to keep him cool. He's not actually doing anything, just sits in there. Strange character. Anyway, thanks for your interest all. The next one is titled, Woke up this morning to an eviction notice for failure to pay rent despite me not being able to contact my landlord for the past 2 months. Ohio. For the past 2 months, November and December, I have not been able to contact my landlord at all. He has simply fallen off the face of the earth. He has not returned any of my calls and has not replied to any of my texts or emails. Despite this, I have still tried to pay my rent to no avail. Both times I tried to pay online only for the payments to be declined on his end within seconds. I have sent 2 money orders by mail only for them to be returned a few days later. When I woke up this morning there was a notice on my door to vacate the property within 10 days for failure of payment. Again I have tried calling and calling with no answer. I even went over to his house/office and knocked on the door and still nothing. Where do I go from here? I don't really have time, or want to be, tied up in court, and I obviously don't want to be homeless in 10 days. Obviously someone is taking care of the properties and business, or I wouldn't have gotten a notice. There is no record, at least on my banking app, of me trying to pay online, and he can just lie and say he never received the money orders. He is kind of a slumlord, so I imagine he is going to try and lie about things. Update. Woke up this morning to an eviction notice for failure to pay rent despite me not being able to contact my landlord for the past 2 months. My post got more attention than I thought it would, so I thought I would post an update on the situation. So I finally got in contact with my landlord. I asked him where he has been and that I have tried to contact him several times so I could pay my rent. He was very aggressive and a huge dick, telling me that it is none of my business where he has been and that all he cared about was the rent. Again, I tried explaining to him that I indeed have tried to pay several times, both online and with money orders. I sent him pictures of the texts I sent him as well as the call log from my phone showing all the times I have called. He still is claiming it's none of my business where he has been and to quit being nosy. I was just trying to show him proof that I did try to contact him and pay, but whatever, I don't really care. I tell him I would just like to just pay the 2 months rent and move on. He said he will not be accepting any more payments from me and that it was up to the court. I still have the money orders and the envelope, but according to the mailman that I talked to, they have smaller distribution centers for local mail and they don't stamp those with a postmark, so I am screwed on that end. I will have to go to my bank on Monday and get a statement, and hopefully it will show where I tried to pay online. I believe for some reason my landlord just doesn't want me here anymore for whatever reason and purposely avoided payment, so he would have a reason for eviction, because as far as I know you can't just evict someone for no reason. So I guess we will see what happens in court. Hopefully once the judge sees that I do have money orders and proof that I did try to contact him, it will go in my favor, otherwise I might be homeless in the next week or so. The next one is titled, New Neighbors Moved into Habitat for Humanity House Next Door Yesterday. Today they came over to request our permission to start building a fence. Today. Indiana. Family literally just signed papers for the house yesterday, and they came over just a few minutes ago to ask if it's okay for them to put up a fence between our houses, starting today. We said we don't know where exactly the property line is, but we've been planning to get estimates for a fence soon ourselves. The woman said it's her father who wants to start it right now and suggested that they just build exactly between our houses. We're in an urban area with narrow lots, so there's not a lot of room to spare. Another wrinkle is that they seem to have immigrated from another country and English is not their first language, and maybe there are some cultural differences personal property. We want to be on good terms and welcoming toward our new neighbors, but we're at a loss for how to respond to this sudden, kinda huge request. Update. I posted a month ago about our brand new neighbors wanting our permission to put up a fence exactly between our houses. We ended up telling them that they really need to get a property survey done first, since we don't know exactly where the property lines are. It was a little difficult to communicate this well since there's a language barrier, but eventually they understood and agreed to wait. Since they didn't know how to proceed and we were planning to do a property survey ourselves soon, we offered to research and get quotes and schedule surveys for both of our properties to be done at the same time. Well, it's a good thing we did push for the property survey, because we discovered, after living here for almost 13 years, that there's actually a separate 10-foot wide lot between our houses that's owned by someone else entirely. The surveyor said as far as he can tell, when Habitat bought the then abandoned house next to us, they either declined to buy the adjacent 10-foot lot that was tied to it or somehow they weren't aware of it. In any case, that 10-foot lot then went up in a tax sale, that we were never notified of, and was bought by some guy for about $500. So now we have to go through the process of contacting this guy and seeing what he's going to ask for this inconvenient gap between our houses. The next one is titled, Neighbor Building Fence in Shared Driveway, Not Sure If It's Legal. I'm a 21-year-old college student living in my first apartment with 2 of my friends. Currently, there's only 3 of us in the entire house, but 3 more girls are moving in above us on August 1st. Yesterday, the man who owns the apartment next door to us, whom we share a driveway with, put notices on our cars stating that he's putting up a fence in the driveway on August 3rd and we'll no longer be allowed to park back there. It's a paved backyard. He's been threatening this since we moved in 2 months ago, but we never really believed him, especially since we spoke with a realtor selling the house a few days ago. Yup, he won't be the owner of the house much longer, yet he's still putting up a fence. The only other parking options are spot in front of my apartment, which fits 2 cars, obviously not enough space for the 6 of us living there, or street parking, which costs $100 for a parking pass for the year. I live in a mildly crappy area, mostly college students, but right next to the projects. I'm not too keen on paying $100 to get my car sideswiped or broken into, which it already has. My landlord isn't answering any of our calls or texts, and hasn't returned the voicemails we left him. I wouldn't have moved into the apartment if I had known that parking would be an issue. Either we were misled when signing the lease, or this neighbor is just a giant asshole. Is this all legal? What should I do? Edit. My apartment is located in Providence, Rhode Island. Update. Sorry this has taken a little while, but a lot has been going on. A girl is currently moving into the 3rd floor as I type this, and I just spoke to her. She told me that the property line is right down the middle of the driveway. She also said that our landlord is on a trip right now. What kind of landlord doesn't tell his tenants that he'll be away? He'll be back on Tuesday, but by that time the fence will already be up. I'm not really sure where to go from here. Update 2. August 4th, 2:30 am. The fence was supposed to go up today, yesterday? I haven't gone to sleep yet, but it didn't. The neighbor wasn't even there. My landlord finally got back to me, apparently he was out of the country. He told me that if my neighbor put up the fence he'd pay for my parking pass, though he doubts my neighbor will follow through with the fence. My landlord also said that he had the property surveyed and he will not hesitate to take the fence down himself if it's even close to being on his property. So I guess it's just a waiting game for now. Update 3. Hello all. This is an update to this post from 2+ years ago. It didn't get much attention and I wasn't great at updating it, but I thought I'd share what happened after my post. A recap. I moved into an apartment in Providence in June of 2015. In late July, the owner of the apartment next to us, with whom we shared a driveway, notified us that he would be erecting a fence going down the middle of the driveway, taking away our access to the backyard, which was really just a big parking lot. While we did have 2 small spots in front of the house, there ended up being 7 cars living at the house. 2 on the 1st floor, 3 on the 2nd, and another 2 on the 3rd floor. We did have on-street parking, but after 2 a.m. it required a $100 permit. For myself and one of my roommates, the permit would have cost $200 each because we were not residents. My landlord was out of the country when this drama started, yet didn't tell us he wouldn't be around, which was very annoying. But thankfully the fence didn't go up while he was away. Once he came back, LL told us to basically tell neighbor to duck off, and that he was going to get his lawyer friend involved. We told LL repeatedly that we didn't feel comfortable telling neighbor off, and frankly, we were paying him $1,200 per month to deal with this. It just wasn't our place. So about 3 months later the fence finally went up. LL bought a parking permit for one of the girls upstairs and one of my roommates. The rest of us basically took turns parking in the spots out front and getting tickets on the street. LL did not offer to pay the tickets for us and got annoyed when we asked him to reimburse us. Thankfully I entered a relationship with one of the guys downstairs and convinced him to let me have the parking spot permanently. So, a couple months after that, LL realized he knew the owner of the house behind us. And they came up with a solution. Basically, they built a ramp going from our backyard up into the other neighbor's backyard so we could access our parking area from their property. This was fine for a little while. Then the tenants of that house started parking dangerously close to the tree in their yard, next to the ramp, so as soon as we got up the ramp we had to bear left to avoid hitting their cars. However, this meant that we got dangerously close to the corner of the garage. I scraped the corner of the garage twice. Luckily I had an old, pretty beat-up car, so I didn't really mind the scratches. I had plans to buy a new car after graduation anyways. My roommate, on the other hand, had a beautiful new car that ended up getting scratched pretty badly. I'm pretty sure she told LL this was not acceptable nor sustainable, but nothing ever came of it. We ended up moving out once our lease was up a couple months after the ramp was built. We didn't pursue any damages, parking tickets, paint jobs, etc., though I'm sure we could have, as our lease did state we were guaranteed 1 parking spot each. The lease specifically said there were 9 available spots between the front of the house and back. We just wanted to be done with it and didn't really feel like fighting with a slumlord. So all in all, not a very exciting update, but a solution of sorts was met without having to go through any legal battles. Last I heard, the tenants of that apartment are still using the ramp and aren't very happy about it. I now live in CT with my very own parking spot just for me and a landlord who actually handles issues himself, so yay for me. The last one is titled, The DMV accidentally gave me a driver's license. Is it illegal to keep it? New York. I have no idea how to drive. I've only ever gotten my temps, and that was years ago. I moved to NY and went in to change my state ID to a NY state ID. When I got home, I realized that I'd been given a temporary driver's license and not a temporary state ID. That also explained why I had to take a vision test and the price was so expensive. The woman helping me must have thought my old state ID was a license and things got lost in communication. In other words, I'm expecting to get a driver's license in the mail any day now without knowing how to drive. So what should I do? I don't plan to learn how to drive until I move out of NY, years from now. If I keep it as my ID but don't drive, is that an issue? Is this going to cause problems for me when I do try to get my license? If I tell them they accidentally gave me a driver's license, am I going to be on the hook? Update. The DMV accidentally gave me a driver's license. Is it illegal to keep it? After the mixed but general consensus suggested I call the DMV, I did. I explained the situation and the woman said it was good that I caught it so quickly because it could have been a big issue for me later on. She said that most people keep the license they've been accidentally given thinking that they won something. They eventually get audited, their license gets suspended, and it's on their record forever. She said that even though I didn't do anything wrong, it looks like fraud. She made me an appointment for today, so I went back and they had me fill out something to cancel the printing of the license. I'm supposed to go back next week to get my state ID. In other words, while I didn't do anything illegal, it looked like I did, and when it comes down to it, that is what matters most. Thanks for listening.